Welcome back. My name is Jake McDonald. I am Anything Lacrosse, and this is a game that never sits still. Today we have a very exciting episode. We'll be touching on the free agent signings that have happened since last time I was on here. We're going to also be going into the Mitch de Snoo situation a little bit and talking about franchise tags. And finally, we're going to be talking about the TSN Broadcast Schedule and the teams that are going to be representing lacrosse to get it out there and to get it exposed. You know, I always say the product's there. We just need to get eyes on it. And Friday nights, TSN Lacrosse is the perfect way to do it. Today we're going to have another great guest. We got Elliot Frickman is on X, his little alias there, but his real name is Ryan McMichael. Played in the NLL a little bit. Also, played all over at a very high level. Watched his dad play. His dad is a legend, and it was really nice to get his insight. His family is very well known in the lacrosse community, and he's just a genuinely great guy. So stay tuned for that. We're going to start with the free agency. Let's get right into this because it's going to be an exciting episode. I'm just going to run through the teams real quick. This is basically all the picks that have been made since Monday, the last time I was really on here or when I recorded. I just want to go over all the teams really quickly. We're not going to go in depth. We did a really in-depth last time and even the time before. So this time we're just going to run through the names that have been picked up since then. At the end of this, when everything's closed out, I'll post my compiled list, okay? IL has a good one. And then I use just X to pick up most of my stuff. Honestly, X is like the morning paper, guys. If you want to know the news, you go on X, and those are the rumors flying around. That's where it is, I find. So that's just my own opinion. That's what I do. But let's get right into it. So Buffalo Bandits were busy. Number one signing in the whole free agency since I've been on has been Matt Vince. Matt Vince is back for another season. He's going to run for 4. Without him, Buffalo would not be contenders right now. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean that's how big of an impact this guy has. Is he getting up there? Absolutely. But he's still a top-level goalie. The goaltenders in this league are absolutely fantastic. They are, I would say, like that 3 to 7 mark right now, you could interchange them, and there's an argument to be made. There's 1 or 2 guys that are really on top. But after that, 3 to 7 mark, you can there's a lot of good goalies in this league. And Vince, is obviously in that top 2, in my opinion. He's just a stronghold back there. He's the greatest goalie of all time. He did not have to come back this year, and he made it. So, somehow if this gets to him, I thank him for that because he's kept Buffalo alive. And Buffalo are still contenders. Everyone that's counting them out, they're wrong. They are still, like I always say, the road to the championship runs through Banditland. And I'm telling you right now, it really freaking does. Okay? So, anyway, we got Kale Matisse, Nick Wise, Ryan McMichael, Clay Scanian, Mike Triolo. They're all 1-year deals. So you can tell this just with the contracts they have been signing, you can tell this is coming to an end. And they might all end up signing another year deal next year. Who knows, right? Depends, especially if they can go for 4. But Buffalo, the time in Buffalo is slowly coming to an end, boys, but enjoy it while it lasts. I'm a big dynasty guy. I love watching greatness. So to me, if they went for 5, it wouldn't bother me. I know it would bother the rest of the league though. But that's the kind of nice thing about just getting to watch lacrosse. You can enjoy it for, just what it is, which is that, they've built a dynasty and they built a top-notch program there. So you got to respect it. Calgary Roughnecks. They got Hayden Dixon, Bennett Smith, Jack Royer, Hudson Shivers. 3-year deal for Shivers and Royer, 2-year deals for Smith, and 1-year deal for Dixon. We're going to see what happens with Calgary this year. To me, they've lost a lot and haven't gained as much back. So we're going to see what happens with them. They don't have their pick this year, their first-round pick either. So even finishing in a low spot really doesn't benefit them that much anyway. So we'll see what happens with them. It's a bit of a mess. They are going through. I think they're done their reno now. If not, they will be done. Whatever. But we'll see what happens. Calgary fans are pretty loyal anyway, so I'm sure they're going to get a crowd. But it's definitely going to be a down year for them, unfortunately, in my opinion. Colorado sent Connor Robertson to San Diego and received a 2026 complimentary first or a 2026 second plus a conditional 2028 third. So, they might get a first, they might get a second and a third for this. It looks like they were more just trying to clear space because they just didn't have space for everybody there. With that being said, in my opinion, they got a little fleeced on this one. And San Diego really took them in this trade, I think, anyway. So we'll see what happens here. It's really going to, with draft picks, you never know for the next few years who really won the trade. But we'll see if it pushes, San Diego. I think San Diego won the trade, so good on them. But maybe that pick will turn out to be an absolute stud. The draft is deep next year, and you never know. There's some really good young guys coming out. So we'll see how this plays out. But right now, to me, this seems like in the short term, it seems like San Diego took Colorado for this one. But in all fairness, though, they need to clear space. What are you going to do, right? So I'm just a player, or I'm just a fan, guys. I don't know. You guys tell me how wrong I am. Anyway, we got Georgia Swarm with Zach Miller and Jordan McIntosh for both 1 year. Georgia, they've been adding some depth pieces. Not really too much, nothing big additions, but Georgia, man, I don't know. I'm a little biased. I think Lyle's the best player in the world. Dobson and net there. He is one of the best cream of the crop goalies in the world as well. So you get those two together, and you can string some games together. You never know with Georgia, right? I'm going to be rooting for them. I think I love that team, honestly. So, and they're underdogs, and I love an underdog story. So I love Georgia. So we'll see what happens there. Halifax has actually added. I would say Halifax almost added like sneakily a lot, because they already got Bomberry earlier, but they got Ethan O'Connor for a year, which is massive signing for them. Jason Knox, Max Wilson, Mike Robertson, Skylar Thomas, Christian Watts, Hilton Armitage. 3 years for him, 3 years for Watts, 3 years for Thomas, 2 years for Robertson, 1 year for Wilson, 1 year for Knox, 1 year for O'Connor. Man, the one I'm really watching there is Christian Watts, man. Now, I'm a little biased because I follow him on TikTok, and I've been watching him for a couple months now, but I'm telling you, that guy, every day he puts out a shooting video. I probably talk about this guy all the time, honestly. But every day he puts out a shooting video. He never misses a day. So I can guarantee you that he's training. I can't say that about everybody else. Now, I'm not saying they're not, but I can tell you right now, I whatever the over is for this guy to score, I'm doing it. He's accurate. He's powerful. His movement's good. And I think he's ready to jump into that Halifax lineup and really make an impact. And they already have a lot of skill up there. But, with Randy Stotts being down, it might give other people an opportunity to get in there and try to show what they got. And you never know what can happen. You can't have too many good players in reality. So let's go shout it to him, Christian Watts. And I can't wait to see what he does this year. But, Ethan O'Connor's a huge signing too. Don't get me wrong. Next, you got Las Vegas Desert Dogs. Now, Las Vegas, I think they won the free agency. But Kyle Killen, Connor Sellers, Alex Burke, Jordan Storos, Luke Pitcher, Tyler Gibson. 2 years for Gibson, 3 years for Pitcher, 1 year for Storos, Burke, Sellers, and Killen. So again, some really depth guys there and stuff like that. But realistically, Vegas already made a huge splash earlier in the week. And you can't argue. Well, you can, but I can't. I think that they made the biggest jump in this, with a free agency. They're going to go from being last, and I said this in my last video too, to about fourth. I said fourth or fifth, but it's probably realistically fourth or sixth, because I've been like kind of tossing the rosters in my mind a little bit, and it's going to be tight in there. Don't get me wrong, but Vegas has just done so much, and they just keep kind of adding a little bit of pieces. And if they can figure out their goalie situation, we're going to be looking at a really strong team. Even I've heard a lot of guys calling these guys out to even go to the championship, win the championship maybe. So, there's all of a sudden, this is what you got to love about this sport, is you can go from the basement to the top, and you can also go from the top to the bottom real fast in this sport. So you better hope injuries are with you, lacrosse guards are with you, and, we'll see what happens. Oshawa Firewolves, they signed Alex Simmons for 3 years. So, he's locked in, and he's a big piece to there. He's an absolute animal. Him and Dyson Williams are the reason I fell in love with that team, or a big reason. Also like the goaltender a lot too. That team is just, I don't know what it is about that team, to be honest with you. They're just special to me. Jackson Nishimura, 2 years, and Zachary Young for 3 years. So, they're just kind of locking down. They've got a really young core, and they didn't make too much of a splash in free agency. They made a big early signing, but other than that, they've really been, more quiet, more depth signing, more free agency, getting ready. The big move to Oshawa. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And I'm actually really pumped for that game opener. And I'm going to be hyping that shit out of that thing, because I can tell you right now, that's going to be a banger. That's going to be a banger, man. Those players are going to want to win, both of them. Everybody wants to, you only have 18 games. You only have 18 chances to get out there and get, a good enough record to make the playoffs. You need about 10 wins realistically to make the playoffs, right? So, it's really trying to get those 10 wins. And then you can, after that, you can still make the playoffs. But if you can get 10 wins, I like from last year, it seems like that's kind of the number to get you into to kind of guarantee yourself in there, right? So, but lots of good teams. And Oshawa, it's hard. I hope they make the playoffs, man. I think they're going to. I can't see them being as bad as they were last year. And I fell in love with that story second half of that season. So, Ottawa Black Bears, you got Sam LaRousse and Kieran McKay. 1 year on LaRousse, and it says Kieran McKay's re-signed through 2028, so that's quite a while. Yeah, and then Philadelphia. So Ottawa's going to be a lot better this year too. I think they're going to be the team that squeaks in the playoffs and gets in there. Jeff Teat's going to drag them there if he has to do it by himself. Higgins is a stand on your head goalie. He could be the third best goalie in the league, the league right now, maybe creeping into second. But like if you're talking just current, and we'll see what happens. But I really do like that team, and they kind of have they have some pressure this year to try to get into those playoffs and show those Ottawa fans that they can do it, and Ottawa fans will come out and show them that they're supportive as well. So let's go. Philadelphia Wings. We got Joey Restardis, Ryan Wagner, Solomon Hess, Tanner Sudin, Cody Innes, Will White, Dalton Young. Dalton Young's a 1 year. White and Innes and Sudin, Hess are 3 years. Wagner is a 2 year, and Joe is a 1 year. So, I mean, the fact that Joey re-signed there, man, is just, that shows heart. That shows that he wants to play there. And obviously he signed a 1 year probably because just to see the uncertainty on what's going on. But it is nice to see, these guys trying to get Philly to stay there, hopefully, and trying to give Philly that one last chance. So let's see. Hopefully, I'm rooting for Philly. And I kind of feel like it's every couple days it switches to, it's sounding good, it's sounding bad, it's sounding good, it's sounding bad. So I think it just depends on who you talk to, on what day, on what they heard. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm rooting for them to stay there. If they go to a new market, we'll see what happens. I mean, that wouldn't be I think they had one team at one point and left and then came back. So anyway, Rochester Nighthawks, you got Adam Thistlewaite, Clifford Gaston, Mitchell Dunham, Seth Martineau, Amos Whitcomb. So all those guys were 3 years. Every one of them are 3 year contracts. Rochester has the best pure offense in the league last year, and I think they're going to be looking the same this year. I mean, Vancouver's pretty dangerous, I'm not going to lie. But, I mean, everybody can score in Rochester. Now, if they can just clean up their back end, it's really, they love shootouts, man. And I mean, excitement, talk about excitement, you love shootouts, right? So, I mean, they're an exciting team to watch. Is that going to be enough to get them to the playoffs? Is that going to be enough to push them back past these top tier teams? I've been saying for a little while, I think Rochester's kind of my dark horse team. I don't really know what they're going to do. If they can just outscore everyone like they were doing last year at a certain point, middle of the season there, to kind of like to the late end. I mean, it's hard to say they won't, but they did. I will say they'd have a little bit of a tougher time scoring against those top tier teams. So we'll see what happens, but that's how it goes. San Diego Seals, you have Connor Robertson going there, which is a sneaky little pickup. Good for you guys, San Diego. Chris Kavanaugh, 3 year. Pat Kavanaugh, 3 year. Jake Govett, 1 year. Kellen LeClaire, 1 year. Graydon Bradley, 1 year. Zach Deacon, 2 year. Dylan Watson, 2 year. Robbie Turpin, 3 years. So San Diego, they've made some additions. They're definitely trying to position themselves right to try to give themselves a shot. It's going to be an uphill battle with them, and it's not their fault. It's just that so many other teams around them have added so much, and we're going to see what they do. They have a good goaltender. Again, he's in that mix. They have a top scorer, Berg. They've got some guys over there. They do. They've got some good defensemen. They're an all-around team. They really are. Do they have enough to push them through? We'll find out. But these teams are just getting better every year, so it's kind of, I see San Diego as being one of those middle of the pack teams, and I actually kind of see them as a bubble team. They're going to be in my bubble. When I do my teams up, I'm going to do a 4-team bubble, and they're going to be one of those 4 teams. Saskatchewan Rush, we have Dagan Carlson, Marcus Needham, Julian Belair, Adam J. 2 years for Jay, 3 years for Belair, and everyone else. So, again, Saskatchewan is really, they're just more, they have the team, right? They really, they lost one guy, I think, one kind of their, one of their guys, but for the most part, they have that guy. Everyone's bought in there. I mean, it's funny. Them in Halifax this offseason, they haven't been super flashy, I'm going to say, like Vancouver, like Vegas, you know what I mean? And even like The Rock. You've had a lot of hype around Buffalo, all that kind of stuff. But like Saskatchewan and Halifax have made really good moves, a little bit more quietly, and they were already primed to win last year. Like if Buffalo was out of the equation, who would have won, right? Saskatchewan or Halifax, in my opinion. That's just what I think. Anyway. Saskatchewan's a bomb of a franchise. I can't wait. I was riding with them in the playoffs. I wanted them to win. Glad to see the three-peat, though. Don't get me wrong. I love dynasties. But, even that final series was a hell of a series. So good for them. Shout out. We got Toronto. Oh, and then sorry, we got Zach Mann and Jared Smith for 2 years each on Saskatchewan as well. Then you got Toronto Rock, Brad Cree, 2 years. Josh Dubinville, 3 years. Owen Hiltz, 3 years. Kobe Handler 3 years, Lucas Hukel 3 years, Alex Messier 3 years, and Ethan Fisher 3 years. So again, a bunch of 3-year contracts, young guys coming up. And then you have Brad Cree. Owen Hiltz is an immediate step-in guy. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. We're gonna see it, right? So I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see what this kid does. He's gonna, I wasn't expecting him at third, and I think a lot of people weren't expecting that kid at third. But I will tell you that after looking at more of his highlights, looking at his numbers, hearing people talk about him, I can see why he's gone at third now. So immediate impact, steps right in, and he's going to push. I think Toronto's another one that that the spotlight's really been put on Vancouver and Vegas, but I'm telling you right now, Toronto is bringing back a lot of stuff. I think de Snoo's going to end up there. We'll talk about that in a little bit or in a minute here, and that's just my opinion. So Vancouver, they had the big signings early in the week, but you have Adam Charlambides, absolutely massive. Like the guy is a really big part of that team that I don't think people talk about enough. Like him and Ball last year, I find Ball gets talked about quite a bit, but Charlambides doesn't, and he's an absolute animal. With him and all the new additions they have over there, like it is scary how that team's going to look. Like I am so excited to watch Vancouver this year. This is the best part about not being a fan of a team. I just get to enjoy it, and Vancouver is going to be fantastic. Hometown boys, hometown pride. You gotta kind of understand that, right? Ryan Dilks as well re-signed. So there's just an update for you guys on what's going on in the free agency since that thing. Go check out my other podcast if you want an in-depth look at everybody else. And at the end of this, I will be posting my own list of everything compiled, but it's out there as well. Inside Lacrosse on X, it's all out there, all the information. So I'm going to try to run through this real quick because we're getting into a long podcast already. And so I'm going to have to go really quick through these next ones. But let's get right into the Mitch de Snoo situation. Okay, the Mitch de Snoo situation. What a mess this is. Okay, wild situation. He had the right to accept or reject the franchise tag. He didn't respond, and so they took that as he accepted. By the sounds of things, he doesn't want to play there. And we'll see what happens in all this. It's going to arbitration, and it really depends on the committee's decision on what happens to this kid now. But let's rock through this real quick. So, February 2025, Toronto trades Mitch de Snoo, which is the 2022 NLL Defensive Player of the Year, and Chris Corbell to the Philadelphia Wings. Philly sends its 2025 first-round pick to Toronto, clearly expecting de Snoo to be a long-term cornerstone. August 28, 2025, Philly issues de Snoo a franchise tag offer with no active CBA existed. Old CBA expired. New one ratified October 21st, 2025. So they almost tried to send this 2 months beforehand, right? Under both CBA, players have 72 hours to accept or decline. Silence counts as acceptance. NLLPA filed grievance arguing no valid CBA existed when the tag was being offered. So, that's a fair point, right? It's kind of a weird situation because, they're trying to franchise tag this person. They traded a first round pick for this guy, essentially. That ended up being a third overall, Owen Hiltz, big pick. And now de Snoo is pretty much saying he doesn't want to play there. He's put his time into the league. I think he's been in here 10 years, around that 8+ years anyway. I think he's earned the right to, kind of say where he wants to go. But whether, is it fair to send in a first round pick, a top 3 pick over, and then you're essentially almost, you're going to lose the main piece to your trade, or what you thought you were going to get for the main piece for your trade. It's a messy situation, though. I can see kind of both sides a little bit. We're going to walk through the franchise tag and how it actually works, okay? So each team gets one franchise tag per season. So it's a tool to retain top players. Locks players under team control for 1 year at 125% of the veteran max salary. Players may decide if they've played in the league 8+ years or 32 years old or older, or older than 32, but they must accept or decline in 72 hours. Anybody before that, if you've played under 8 years or you're under 32, then you can't decline the franchise tag. They can just put it on you 3 years in a row, and then I think by that time after that, you're allowed to decline it, right? But they're allowed to put it on you. So that's another kind of, again, I can see both sides to that argument as well. But, it's frustrating for a guy who maybe wouldn't want to be in a certain spot, and he's stuck there for probably, at least 6 years, I'm going to say. So we'll see what happens. It's I can see both sides of it, to be honest with you. So this is the issue with it. Obviously, the tag was offered during the CBA gap. Snoo qualifies to decline. He's 9 seasons in. He's plus 32. Philadelphia acted in good faith. NLLPA says it's invalid without active agreement. Both sides technically right, hence the arbitration. So I think there's going to be some kind of trade involved. Maybe if he wants to go back to Toronto, Toronto's going to have to send something over. Philly is probably going to lose in this trade, though. They're going to end up getting a little bit screwed over. It's just the way this is going to end up, in my opinion. That's just me. Nobody's told me that. This is what I'm piecing together. So tell me if I'm wrong. But to me, that's kind of seems like the most sense. They're not just going to side with one side or the other. I don't think. I mean, most negotiations, if both sides walk away like they're not happy, that's kind of the win, to be honest with you. So if one side walks away super happy and the other one loses, it's not great, especially in this situation, which it is kind of because really all de Snoo would have had to do in that 72 hours is come out and say no, and then this wouldn't be an issue either. So it's kind of like I can see it from both sides of the coin here, but at the end of the day, de Snoo, I think he was doing some stuff in the off season. I can't remember if he got married or had a kid or something. I think he might have got married. So he might have been just doing his own thing. And at the end of the day, they didn't have a CBA. They didn't even know if they were going to play this season. So maybe he just kind of, some players deal with things differently than others. And I think he might just be a guy that just said, screw it, I'm just going to turn it off, see what happens, let the cards fall where they may, and we'll see what happens. So right, and then once it all came back, he obviously wants to play. For some reason, he doesn't want to play in Philly, and I mean, there's guys like that with all the uncertainty there. So again, that's all just my speculative thing that I like, that I'm kind of piecing together. It's nothing that I've been told. So what happens next? Okay, the grievance is upheld. De Snoo becomes an UFA. Philly loses rights. If grievance is denied, de Snoo is bound to play for Philly for 2025, 2026. Risk of a holdout, most likely. Compromise trade before camp, right? And I think that's kind of both sides move on, and I think that's the best way to go about this, especially if he doesn't want to play there. Because what happens if he just sits out for a season? He's a really good defender, and is that going to help us grow the game? No. So get him in there, get him traded. If he does go back to Toronto, I think that they should have to give something decent up for him, as in compensation to Philly personally, but because he got a third overall pick. Am I going to say it's going to be the third overall pick? I don't think so, to be honest with you, but maybe a future pick. Maybe they'll have to discuss something, right? Well, franchise tag is basically a control tool for the teams to try to help them, hold on to their stars that they've invested the time and money into, which I can kind of understand as a franchise and as a business owner. I understand what it does. And this de Snoo, like I said, it's a sticky situation, and I hope it can all get cleared up really fast for the sake of the league. And, we want to see de Snoo play. And I'd like to see him back in Toronto selfishly. I think that just adds to Toronto, and that puts Toronto again up into that. It pushes them up. That's why I'm not making my list yet, because I haven't seen the actual rosters. Once the rosters come out, we'll talk about, where I think everyone's going to sit. But right now I'm just kind of rough guessing and just getting everything going. It's funny. It's funny to do that. But I do think that there's a lot of teams right here that depends on how all the chips fall, where everyone goes and how injuries go. And there's a lot of factors in here, because I think this is a very, very even skilled league is the best way I can put it. That's why I love it. Any team can go beat any team on any given night. And I mean, you can't ask for a better, as a fan, you can't ask for anything better than that. It's awesome to watch your team win. I love watching your team win, but there's nothing better than watching your team win when they've deserved to win and when they've really put in the effort and they come out in a really back and forth or a tight battle and they get that final goal and they end up winning the game. There's no better feeling than that, as a fan anyway. And I'm sure as a player, right? That's the Mitch de Snoo situation. Take it for what it is. You guys let me know what you think, but that's kind of what I pieced together with it. And, franchise tags, I'm not a massive fan with it, but I think it might be a necessary evil right now until we get the league where we want to be at, essentially is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, let's run right through this. We're going to quickly run through the TSN broadcast, and then we're going to get right into the interview with Mr. Frickman there. So now we're going to talk about the TSN broadcasting schedule. I'm just going to run through the games, and there's some really, really good games on here. So opening weekend, December 5th, we have Ottawa versus Halifax. And I think actually the one that they didn't on here, because there's 20 on here on my list, and I think the one that's on here, I'm pretty sure the season opener on the 28th is also on, Oshawa versus Toronto is also televised. I'm almost positive, but don't quote me on that one. But we got Oshawa versus Halifax. That's a great game. Oshawa's going to get, by the looks of things, they're going to get quite a few games in here on TSN. which I mean, Dyson Williams being the young star, you really got to push those young stars as much as like some of these old stars like Dane Smith and all that stuff. Even Lyle, as much as I love them, they're kind of closer to the end. Now these guys played till they're 40. Don't get me wrong. Like, we'll see what happens. So they might have 6-7 years left, but at the end of the day, you can definitely tell they're closer to the end than the beginning, I would say, right? For most of these guys, where you have a Jeff Teat, you have a Dyson Williams, Alex Simmons. There's these young guys in the league that are coming up that they're really they're the future. So you got to start selling them on TV and getting them recognized, because that's you want them walking down the street and be like, oh, that's Dyson Williams, man. Can I get an autograph? And like that's kind of what you want, right? With the sport to grow. If you want the sport to grow, that's what you want. So anyway, Oshawa, Halifax, Saskatchewan, Ottawa. That's a good game. Ottawa, do not sleep on Ottawa this year. Saskatchewan is, fantastic. They just pepper you and they keep coming. They keep coming and coming and coming. So, but Jeff Teat might be able to put Ottawa on his back and carry them by himself. Not saying he has to. There is some other talent there. They have, like I say, I really enjoy their goaltender in Higgins. They made a big trade this offseason. They made a couple signings, and I think they're going to squeak in the playoffs myself. Then you got then you got Vancouver, Oshawa on December 19th. Again, amazing, cool. Vancouver at that point is going to be really rolling. They're going to get Jellin, and I mean, that one's going to be a hard one for Oshawa to win, but we'll see. Halifax, but that's an amazing game. Vancouver versus the Firewolves that's a banger in Oshawa too. Then you got Halifax versus Ottawa in Ottawa. I mean, that's going to be a good game too. Halifax is strong. We're going to see where Ottawa's sitting at that point, but I think they'll be doing okay. Vancouver and Calgary, that's a nice little rivalry there. But the thing is, I will say about Vancouver is going to mop the floor with Calgary during that game, because Vancouver is going to be one of the best teams in the league. And Calgary, I just can't see them doing well this year. I'm sorry. I know my Calgary fans are going to hate on that, but I'm going to be putting them in the bottom 3 of my league this year. There's nothing to talk about. They've just lost too much. But fans are great. And, they do have a couple young pieces. And the nice thing about this game is anything happens. So love a good storyline. Prove me wrong. Then you have Ottawa and Buffalo on January 16th. And I mean, that's a pretty solid game too. That could turn into a little rivalry as time goes on. Buffalo's, going to be rolling at that point. Ottawa's probably going to be, Ottawa's got a pretty rough schedule. So they're going to have to really pull some games off when they probably shouldn't be winning, so that could be one of them. Maybe they'll upset Buffalo. Who knows? We'll see how Buffalo's performing at that time. And, but none of these teams that's going to be a good game. Calgary versus Georgia is in Edmonton. And so, you're going to see a bunch of Calgary fans go to Edmonton to see this game. Also, you're going to get to see the best player in the world play there. So there's a lot of hype around this. I'm hoping we can fill this arena, fill it, get it right full. Show them, if you want a team back, show them that you want the team to support the unbox game. And I do hear a lot of times I have heard that you guys are on the short list for a team, whether that be an expansion or whether that be in relocation. Well, who knows? With that being said, I've also heard the opposite, where it's like they're looking into other markets as well. So, I could see this league exploding in the next 10 years. And so this isn't over by any means. I think Edmonton's going to always be considered a team. And if they can get that arena figured out, it'll be good for them. So then you got Vancouver versus Ottawa. And, that's going to be an all around good game. Anytime Vancouver's going to be playing tonight, this year, it's going to be good. Saskatchewan versus Calgary the next week. And I mean, that's again, another rivalry game, right? So, I mean, Saskatchewan's going to be so good, and Calgary's going to get killed this year, man. I really do believe that. I hate saying that because their fans are going to rip me apart for that one. But I will say Calgary is just, like I said it before, Calgary's just lost too much in the offseason. We have Oshawa versus Toronto. Toronto and Oshawa, again, that's going to be a great little rivalry, man. And that's in Toronto or in Hamilton this time. The first time they're playing in Oshawa. And I love when they go home and home. I would like to see, these teams play a little bit more against each other a season. Buffalo and Toronto only playing once is like horrible. Next we have Buffalo, Halifax. In Halifax, that game's going to be a banger. You got Buffalo versus Vancouver. That could be a final preview right there. That's on February 20th. You got Saskatchewan versus Buffalo. Again, that could be a final preview. At least another little taste of what we got in the final last year. Then you have Buffalo again. So they get 4 Fridays in a row right now. You have 4 Fridays in a row. You're going to get to watch Buffalo. Buffalo versus Toronto, February 28th. That's it, boys. That's the one I'm going to. That's the one I'm going to get. I'm going to schlep my way to Hamilton, and I'm going to bring about 3 boys that aren't even fucking lacrosse fans, and we're going to turn them, because that's the game, bud. That was the game that turned me into a lacrosse fan, and that game is going to be a banger. They only play once this year. The hype in that game is going to be awesome, and that might be the game that I'm looking forward to the most, to be honest with you. So then you got Toronto, Vancouver the following week. That depending on where Toronto's sitting, depends on where Toronto's sitting at that point. That could be a really, really strong game. You also have Toronto and Halifax the following week as well. So Toronto's getting a lot of airtime this year. I mean, as you know, they're the one of the legacy franchises kind of deal. That's going to be that's the game right there. March 13th in Halifax is the game that decides who I'm going to be a fan of. More than likely, unless somebody else pulls me. But that's what I've said from the beginning here, is that's the game. Whoever wins between those two when they play the first time this season, I was going to be a fan of. And so I'm probably going to stick to that. And I mean, honestly, to be honest with you, either one of these franchises I get to be a part of as their fan base, I think it's going to be awesome. Like, they both have diehard, passionate fans. Rock fans are amazing. Halifax fans are amazing. Everybody is like that. Both fan bases are loud, and I can't wait to see what the crowds are like this year at the. I mean, I don't even know what is it. What is it? I don't even remember. I don't even know what it's called anymore. I always call it Cops Coliseum. That's what it was with when I was there. That's what we're gonna go with. Cops Coliseum. I know it's not that anymore. I understand that for Ontario, whatever the fuck it is now. It'll always be Cops Coliseum to me, and that's just me growing up there. So, and then you got Vancouver Buffalo the next week. Again, possible final. That's like, these games that they're putting on are the top level product, honestly. You got Toronto Ottawa the following week, which is again great. That's going to be a good little rivalry too. And then Toronto Saskatchewan the last week, and that could be setting the matchups for the playoffs. So those are exciting games to be on TV. A lot of those games, like, there definitely are a couple, maybe 2 or 3 that maybe, you could argue, oh, maybe that's not the best product you'd be putting on that night. But for most of those games, I would say 90%, they're the games you want to see, right? Vancouver, Halifax, Vancouver, Buffalo, Buffalo, Saskatchewan, Buffalo, Halifax. Like, there's all these different teams that are just going to be so good. And you put that on TV, you get people watching it. Let's pray that there's not a lot of hockey on when that happens. And I'm going to be pumping that stuff, bud, when that stuff's on. We're going to be pumping the content. We're going to be trying to get hockey fans in. I'm going to be like a cult leader, bringing all these hockey fans over to lacrosse. So anyway, I've yapped for long enough. I know you guys are waiting for the main event. And if you didn't skip over, I appreciate it. But we're going into Elliot Frickman, aka Ryan McMichael. And I can tell you right now, this guy is a character. And that's completely in a good way, with all the respect. The guy is super knowledgeable, been around lacrosse his whole life. And I learned a lot about him just interviewing him. He obviously has all the legacy down, all the history of this game, knows it inside and out. So some of my ideas that I probably think are great, fantastic ideas from a fan's point of view, he looked at them, and he gave me all. He was super respectful, super, super happy to answer my questions. Easy to talk to. I could have sat there, and I said this about Dawson too, but I could have sat there and talked to him all night easily. It's an hour interview, and I can tell you right now that I could have talked for another hour with him. Like,
exciting guests on the show today. We have Elliot Frickman, or Ryan McMichael, as he likes to really go by, I think. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you here. So I think today we'll just kind of start off on your background in lacrosse, and just give me a kind of rundown with that.
Lacrosse has been a major part of my life ever since I've been a kid, right? I kind of grew up in the game. My dad was a local Brooklyn Redmond legend. I'm pretty sure anybody who's been around the game in, the 90s and the late 80s, and then even still to this day, kind of recognizes the name Scotty McMichael. So growing up in the game, I got to be around some of the greats of the game, Gary Gate, Paul Gate, Tom Marichuk, Peter Park, John Grant Jr., Tracy Koleski, guys like that, right? So, just kind of growing up in small town Brooklyn, Ontario, and then just kind of chased the dream ever since I was a young kid.
When did you kind of know that you were going to go from being this was just something you were playing, to when you were thinking about moving towards that professional or, the level, or higher level anyway?
Like realistically, when I actually thought it was an option was about 20 minutes after a fellow by the name of Pete Vipon had drafted me into the Anaheim Storm organization. We didn't really put much stock in it back then, right? It was just kind of like something that you would do as fun as entertainment. The league was just kind of starting to grow back then. So basically, it was just, I got a call saying, hey, we drafted you into Anaheim. And then just from there, I kind of thought maybe that this would be an opportunity for me just to extend my love of the game.
Do you see more of a direct route now with people? Like you see scouts going out earlier or anything like that compared to before?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's treated more of like a business now than it was back then, right? Like you go to any junior game and like a lot of the GMs or coaches have kids that play in junior leagues and in the first couple of years of the senior league. So you see the scouts in local arenas all the time, a lot more often than you did back in my day, that's for sure.
You're coaching currently, or you used to coach?
I coach currently, yeah. So last summer I took a little bit of a back step and coached a minor organization based out of Northumberland. We had an absolute wagon of a team, ran into another wagon in St. Catharines in both provincial and box lacrosse finals, and they got the better of us. But it's just kind of going back to giving back to the game, right? Like I love the game, I love the people, I love everything about it. So the more that I can do to help the next generation, the better.
Absolutely, I agree with that. There's got to be guys on both sides getting everybody, the next generation, ready, right? And I think that as we go on, players are just going to get better and better. So at that high elite level, what would you give, a player looking at a younger player looking to try to get there? What would you tell them to do in order to get there? And what do you look at when you're kind of scouting for guys or even looking at guys to add to your team?
Me personally, I look for kids that just love the game of lacrosse, right? Lacrosse it's such a great game and it's such a fantastic way to create lifelong bonds, but you actually have to love it because it's not something that, you're just going to get good at overnight, right? It takes a lot of repetitions. It takes a lot of time and commitment to like you within your personal life and your fitness, and then just being able to keep that stick in your hand as much as you can. Like I know in Canada, we're all thinking that we're going to make the NHL, but unfortunately, the numbers just don't equate into many people making that professional level when it comes to hockey. So the more we can keep our stick in our hands, the more we can keep reps, the more we can just walk down the street cradling the stick with a ball in it, right? Like it's repetitions. Like I tell my ex-girlfriend's son all the time, like just go for a walk down the street and find a wall and bang it off the wall for about 10 minutes and then just go for another walk and keep your stick in your hand and try and find another wall. Go for a jog and bounce it off a garage, like not like actually somebody's garage, but like a mechanic's garage that has a nice brick wall and go for a run and just try and be as creative as you possibly can. Like this game, you can get so good just by doing the small things, right?
Agree. It's really just about repetition, and I even seen it when I was coaching this year. My son's U11, just they were all very new at it, and by the end of the season, they were able to do all the basics and actually were pretty good at it, right?
Exactly.
So, do you find what percentage of those players do you say would go on to a higher level, whether that be a university or like a school in the States or that next higher level, the NLL kind of deal?
Well, my team personally out of Northumberland, like I have at least 5 Division 1 quality athletes. These kids, like I'm a lot when it comes to the game of lacrosse. I'm not afraid to say that, and I expect a lot. And a lot of these kids, like we were concerned that my expectations were going to be a little bit more than what they were going to be able to contribute. But I was pleasantly surprised when we get to practice after a tough day, and I had two of my big leaders going like, "Hey, Frick, like we understand we got to put in some work today, so don't feel bad, don't hold back on us." And I threw a lot at them, right? Like we were running a professional style offense at U15, which was absolutely remarkable, and especially being from like such a small town, like I think in our whole organization, we had 80 to 90 rep lacrosse players, period. And we would go up against teams like Brampton, like Whitby, like Toronto, who have thousands and thousands of people within their rep organization. And we were competing with the top tier programs in the province. And I would put, the St. Catharines was absolutely fantastic. Like those guys there, you're probably looking at, there's a kid by the name of Keegan Louie who, if you want to, focus a little bit on the next couple of years, like you remember the name Keegan Louie, like this kid's going to be a stud at the Division 1 level at any school that he wants to go to. So like it just the age group itself was absolutely phenomenal. But speaking on our own team, like I won't be surprised if there's 5 quality Division 1 athletes coming out of there.
I think, see, everyone always, with hockey, everyone focuses on trying to go pro. I like the aspect of looking at going to like a D1 university school and getting, even partially of that education paid because it's such a good benefit and long-term play for these guys.
Well, you're not going to be able to play lacrosse for the rest of your life. Like that's just
Yeah.
given, right? We see that every day with greats retiring and certain things like that, right? So why not go to the education route and let somebody pay for you to set your rest of your life up? Like you never know. It doesn't even like again. I probably shouldn't say this, but it doesn't really matter what you take in school. You're going to create lifelong friendships and lifelong bonds, and that friendship could lead to $1 million a year job just because you were a college roommate with the guy. Like there's so many doors that the college route can open for you, as opposed to being 18 years old and jumping into the pro ranks and you're gonna make your 40 or 30, 50K a year, whatever the number is. But what are you gonna do in 10 years? What are you gonna do in 20 years? Like we don't have an NHL pension, we don't have a Major League Baseball pension, right? So the more that you can do to set yourself up for your future, the better. And if somebody's going to pay your education bill, that's going to be what, 40, 50, $60,000 American a year, and that sets you up for the rest of your life. Like you're helping your parents out and you're helping yourself out in the long run.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great way to go, and I think there's lots of room to growth. And I'm hoping to see eventually that these guys won't be able to do anything else, and they'll be able to do full-time lacrosse, and that will be able to be lucrative enough to really incentivize people to go. Because there's a lot of guys, I think, and a lot of players right now that probably could make a lot more money in the public, like just being in the private field, doing their whatever their skill is out there.
Oh, a million percent, right? And like that's why I have a lot of admiration for these guys that kind of just stood on the hill and said in the CBA negotiations that we need more of a livable wage, because again, like a guy like Christian Del Bianco shouldn't have to be concerned about going and building a house on a Monday after he's played his ass off on Saturday or Sunday or Friday.
Completely agree. I mean, the wages, I mean, from what I've heard out around the league from the players that I've talked to, they were happy with the deal. Are you hearing the same thing? Are you hearing still there's kind of a little bit like obviously there can be more growth, and I'm big on transparency with the numbers, but overall the players seem happy on my end anyway from what I'm hearing.
I'm hearing they're not unhappy. How about that?
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that's good enough. We got a season. That's the main thing, right?
Hey, and that's all that matters, right? A lot of these guys didn't want to miss out on their 50 or 60 or $80,000 that they're making. But in the same sense, we got a long ways to go to bridge that gap to where we don't need firefighters to go to work on Monday and Tuesday, and we don't need these guys to go and build houses or be electricians or teachers or whatever it is that they're doing as their real job.
At like, what are these guys practicing? Even at a junior A level too. What are these guys practicing a week?
Junior A, it's I think you're looking at probably a 3 to 5 day week, right? Like you're gonna have your 2 games a week just because we have such a small amount of time to get so many games in. And then like I know when I was coaching in Whippy with Sean Williams, we would practice on a Monday, and then we had our home nights on a Tuesday, and then you might be looking at going to Peterborough on the Wednesday or Brampton on the Thursday or Orangeville on the Friday. So it's a rigorous grind, right? And especially like a lot of those kids too, coming off of the school grind, and then you got to get back at it and get ready to work. Like I got a great story about a kid everybody knows, Tanner Cook. The guy used to dig pools during the day, right? So he would go and work his ass off and dig a pool, and he would get onto the bus, and I like to throw the cards around, so we would sit in the back of the bus, and Cookie would come and sit beside me, and he'd be like, "Fricky, just wake me up when we get there, buddy. I'm gassed." Right? And then the guy would sleep from Iroquois Park to or Tony Rose Arena, which is 2.5, 3 hours. Walk off the bus like a zombie, go and put up 4 or 5, 6, 7 points, and then he'd get back, and when he was of age, he'd grab a blue can or two and grab his pillow and be right back to sleep. Like, Cookie, what are you doing, man? Like, throw some cards around. Like, Frick, I had to go and dig pools at 6 o'clock in the morning, Bubs. Like, the kid needs his rest.
Yeah.
So, like, just like the admiration for guys like that go out on the everyday grind and then go and put on a show for the tens of thousands of fans that we have in arenas is absolutely amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think there's tons of growth, and these guys that are here now are the pioneers. You guys are pioneering this sport, and unfortunately, hopefully as we go, we'll get more sponsorships and stuff, and things will be better, and they can make some good money. But you guys are really doing all the, kind of the initial work to build the foundation for this league. So, we have to be thankful as fans.
Those guys in the game right now, like they're just setting the table for the next generation, and again, like the admiration that I have for them to stand and almost die on the hill it's absolutely amazing. Like I couldn't be more grateful that we get to watch the games this winter like we're going to, and just the fact that they risked a paycheck just for the next generation to get better. It's absolutely admirable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, talking about the next generation, like I'm a big Trey Deer fan. I think he's kind of the next big thing to come up. And I mean, he's 27, right? But what's your thoughts on some players that are young that are really going to make an impact to the NLL or when they get here?
I think like Trey's even younger. Like Trey's 21. He
Yeah,
just
I think he's
graduated.
20. Yeah,
He just graduated junior A lacrosse, so he can't be older than 21. But we we've known that kid's going to be an absolute stud for the last 6 years, right? I coached during COVID. I coached a Whippy Warriors futures team, and he was playing on the Orangeville future team. We had a little bit of a tournament at the track in Toronto and in Oakville, sorry, not Toronto area. And he went out and would just absolutely light the lamp, and then he fought our tough guy. Right, and
yeah,
not only fought our tough guy, did well against our tough guy, right?
yeah,
And he's just an absolute anomaly. Like we all seen the video on Barstool that got well over 100,000 views of him and that other fella just standing in the pocket and absolutely throwing, and then the guy goes out and scores 4 goals. Right, like he's an anomaly, and he's going to be one hell of a lacrosse player and super fun to watch this winter in Syracuse.
yeah, absolutely is. And I mean, that kid's just special. But what do the players think about fighting? Because as a fan, I love it. It's part of the game. I think it also I think it stops frustration because once the fight's over, it usually kind of calms everything down. But how do they feel? Because I mean, they're taking impact to their head like that, and that's what we're also trying to avoid. So I can see it from a fan's point, but can also see it from a medical point as well.
Well, as a guy who wasn't really afraid to get punched in the face, you know what your job is, right? And you know what
Yeah,
you're getting into. I knew on a Thursday night I was going into Queens Park playing for whoever I was playing for. That I was a little bit of a rat. I'm not afraid to admit it, right? But I also knew that when I wanted to pull my shenanigans, I was going to have to answer the bell. And my
yeah,
philosophy is if you don't want to fight, then don't be a rat, right? Like if you're going to run around
yeah,
and you're going to stick a guy, or you're going to throw a high stick, or you're going to throw a little bit of a cheap shot, then it might be coming back to you. So, you know, I'm not going to speak for any of the players right now, but I do know that the guys that know what their job is know that they're going to get punched in the face, and that's just the way that it is, right? If you're not looking to get punched in the face, then maybe you don't want to be a rat. Maybe you want to play a little bit of a cleaner game, right? Maybe you don't run your mouth, but. I don't think like the guys that do it would have a problem with it. Like I can't see Paul Dawson having a problem with getting punched in the face if he's going to go out, and it bolsters your team as well, right? Like there's a little bit of a saying about a tough guy that he makes everybody 4 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, and that was kind of a role that I was perfectly okay with doing, right? Like by no means was I a tough guy. Like, I wasn't Daniel Amesbury, I wasn't Andrew Suter, but I would stand in the pocket and throw with them if I had to, right? And that's just because I knew that if let's say when I'm playing for Maple Ridge, if I would stand in the pocket and throw the guy, then maybe that gets that guy away from Curtis Dixon for 10 minutes. And who's more important to that team, me or Curtis Dixon? And the answer is very easy. It wasn't me.
no, absolutely. And I mean, it just shows a lot of times just by being involved in the fight, whether you win, lose, it just by standing up for your team really gives your team a big push a lot of the time in
Oh,
order
and
to, go get a goal or something.
in the long run, the only person that cares about who wins the fight is the keyboard tough guy that's chirping about that person losing the fight,
Yeah,
right? Like I
that's
again,
fair.
like if I played in the WLA for 10 years and let's say I got into 150 to 200 fights, I maybe won one, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
my record wasn't clean. I was the king of losing fights 10-9. As a couple people used to tell me, but I also knew that
yeah,
I would stand up, and whether or not it changes the momentum of the game or it
yeah,
changes the whole tide of the game, like in tenfold, then it is what it is. And I was grown up the way that it was. You do whatever you're told to do, and I got the tap on the shoulder to say go and talk to that guy for a little bit. Like big deal. I lost. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So why don't you give us a story of your some of your stories from your playing days? Like give me some of your favorite memories, and where you played and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I was a little bit of a traveling suitcase, right? I played a couple years junior B with the Green Gales, won a couple national titles there. Moved on to the Warriors. Unfortunately, the coach at the time and my family had a little bit of a history, so my career there was kind of cut short. Got a call from a fella out in New Westminster and did a junior stint there. 19 years old, obviously you're going to come back home, right? So my family lineage stems from the Toronto Beaches organization, to where my grandfather was one of the first four founding members of the organization. My uncle had just bought the team, the junior A team at the time. So my coach for growing up had taken over that job, and he had called me and said, it's time for you to come back home and pay homage to your family. So I did that. And then unfortunately, I wasn't one of the four guys that got protected by my hometown, Brooklyn Redmond, and I got picked up in the draft by Six Nations. Well, anybody that knows the history of the McMichaels and the Six Nations knew I wasn't going there. So that's when I just kind of packed my bags and went out to Vancouver and just tried to make my own name. Well, unfortunately, the McMichael name was a little bit bigger than I had anticipated, and everybody thought I was a tough guy because my dad was one of the toughest guys to ever play the game of lacrosse. So I just, hey, you guys want me to play on the team, and I got to fight to play on the team, and that's what I got to do, right? So did a brief stint in New Westminster, and then the Langley Thunder were going to make a little bit of a run at the Mann Cup back then. So they needed a guy to make sure that Lewis Ratcliffe had a little bit of space. Garrett Billings had a little bit of space. Not that I was at anywhere near on par with those guys, but again, with guys like me, and there was another guy who was a million times tougher than me named Kyle McEwen. We were there patrolling the left side. So we did a little bit of that. But as for my favorite memory, it would have to be, 2012 coming back to Ontario to play in the Mann Cup. I had a bunch of my family in the Peterborough Memorial Center, and then probably about 7,000 people who hated the last name McMichael. So I got yelled and screamed at and booed like I was somebody, and I was an absolute nobody. And that was a pretty big highlight of my career, unfortunately.
It's awesome, man. To play in that Mann Cup would be special. There's so much history there. With the MSL, I know I've been hearing rumblings where they're going to start reducing the amount of NLL players that are allowed to be on the roster. Like, you can't just load, like the Chiefs did essentially this year, right? They loaded up. So I think I've heard it's around 6 right now. And I think what's going to happen is essentially it's going to be less and less as time goes on. And do you think that that's where that league's headed, or do you think it's just going to be that second league to the NLL?
If Major Series or the WLA was going to do that, they might as well just close the doors to the whole league. That to me makes as close to zero amount of sense as possible. For the Senior B League, I'm 100% on board. I think the Senior B League should be a little bit of a feeder to the Major Series or the WLA. But why would you take away let's just use the Chiefs roster. Why would you take away all those guys from Major Series? Like, what good does that bring to your league? Absolutely none. How many people are going to be in Peterborough Memorial Center not to watch the best players that come out of Peterborough, right? Like, it's sold out every single game, yes. But what people are forgetting is that and again, I know this is many, many moons ago, but in 1990, they played in an arena that can barely hold 200 people, and they wouldn't get 200 people. And that's before all of the best players from Peterborough came back. And then the Memorial Center came into play, and then the 5,000 people, whatever that holds, came into play. So if you're looking at taking away the best players in the world, what's going to make the average fan go and watch them? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, the only thing I see is, like, I know there's rumblings where the NLL's, it's still a rumor, but they might be moving the season to like the spring summer, which would conflict with that, which would then make the players have to choose between the two in that situation. And that's where I kind of
if they were to do that, I would see it be more of like an NHL AHL thing, right? And instead of having players come down and play in the Arena Lacrosse League, like practice roster guys or not everyday guys, then they would go to your Brooklyn Redmonds, your Peterborough Lakers, your Brampton Excelsiors, your Salmon Bellies, your Victorias. And that I would completely understand, right? But there has to be some kind of a way to where the leagues can figure out how to coincide, right, for everybody to be successful. And in my mind, that's the only way that you can do it. If you're gonna, and again, I'm fully on board for the NLL moving away from the winter season. Like, it makes no sense for us to compete against some of the biggest, most major sports leagues in the world. But if you're going to do that, why would you take away the Brooklyn Redmonds' ability to have some of the best? Brooklyn, Whitby, Durham has some of the best lacrosse in around. So why would you limit Tanner Cook? Let's say Tanner Cook gets hurt for playing for Calgary. Why would you limit his ability to come back and play a couple of games with the Brooklyn Redmen, and then he's able to get back in, and then he's back in Calgary? Right. I think the best course of action, if you are going to move it to the summer months, is have teams be affiliated with each other. Peterborough's affiliation, let's say, is the Rochester Nighthawks. Brooklyn's affiliation, let's say, is the Oshawa Firewolves. Like Victoria or whatever, whatever way you want to slice it. It's got to be some kind of a cohesive unit between both leagues, and then that way everybody gets better. We don't have to worry about how many guys are on an NLL roster that play Senior A, because again, like our biggest attribute would be to have everybody work together, and then that's how we're going to grow the game. We're not going to grow the game by getting in the way of each other.
No, I completely agree. We have to, all these leagues have to work together. And that's kind of how I see that league personally is more of like a feeder league to the NLL. Once we're at the point where these guys are making the money, where they're able to just play in the NLL and then they can take the rest of the time off, do whatever they want, if they want to go play at another level. But at the same time, I don't know if the owners are going to want them playing at a league if they're paying them these top dollars, right?
Well, how many NHL guys play in the summer hockey league?
There's not too many, I don't think, right? So it's like that.
What about
I know
that,
there's some.
What about that Beauty League that's based out of Minnesota? It's 5 rosters full of
Yeah,
NHL
that's true, I guess.
5 rosters full of
Yeah,
NHL guys.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They do come out there and they do play other leagues. I mean, you still could. It's just with it being so contacty. I don't know if they would want to. I know that's the argument for the Olympics and the NHL anyway, right? For a long time, on why they didn't want them playing there.
Yeah, but if we're going to grow the game, we can't limit the exposure. That's just the bottom
No,
line.
I agree.
If we're going to grow the game and try and get Jimmy and Johnny to be in Oshawa Arena, the Tribute Community Center, then why are we limiting their abilities to go and see them in the summertime? Like it doesn't make any sense to me, anyways.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So, like, where do you see this league going? Would you like when I look at it, the numbers look good, the growth looks good, especially since the return from COVID. All the numbers are really up that are out there. Everything's kind of still hush hush, but the numbers are looking up. So, like, do you feel like the league's growing in the right direction? If not, what do you think they could do to improve it?
I definitely think it's going in the right direction. I think that we gotta stop worrying about who's making what, and let's focus on our product, which is our players. Right, our players need to have the freedom to, again, Christian Delbianco not go and build houses for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then have to worry about jumping on a plane to get from Vancouver to Toronto to go and play in Oshawa on a Saturday night, to hurry up to get back to Toronto for 6 o'clock in the morning to get back to Vancouver so we can go back and build houses. Like the faster that we can limit the players having to go into that second structure of finances or that third structure of finances, the better off everybody's going to be. How that gets done, yeah, that's, I'm not a numbers guy, right? But, for the product on the floor, I don't think we've ever been in a better spot to grow, right? We have some of the best athletes in the world. The game is thriving in some major American markets, whether or not it be at the collegiate level or the amateur level. And those are just some of the things that we need to capitalize on. But we need to stop, focus a little bit more on our product and focus a little bit more on the guys who are rushing to get back to work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just so that they can be their air quotes weekend warriors that the league is trying to make us be.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see an increase in games. I obviously know there needs to be an increase in pay in that, but I would like to see, I've heard 30 is kind of the rumor. I'd like to see 36, same kind of setup as we have now. That'd be like 2 games a week for 18 weeks on a 21-week schedule kind of deal. And I would also like to see.
That's going to entail weekday games, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. I think they're yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is true or false, but I got a good inclination that is true, is owners are trying to, or have capped the amount of money that guys can make on the side, and that goes into the CBA. So how are we going to alleviate, this missed work pay thing? If you want, again, I'm going to use them as an example, Christian Delbianco, to not go and build $1 million house on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because he's going to go play a game in Philadelphia on Wednesday. Well, how does that make sense for Christian? How is Christian going to lose out on the, $4,000 for that week he's going to make, $5,000 for the week he's going to make? And, that's just a random number that popped into my head. I don't know if it's true or not, but, how are we going to ask him to go to Philadelphia for that Wednesday night game when he can realistically make more money sitting at home?
No, absolutely. I mean, a guy like that is just doing it for the love of the game. That's really all he's doing it for, and that's what I think a lot of these players are doing it for and pioneering it for these next guys that are going to end up benefiting a lot from this.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
So do you think that the league is looking into expansion, and would it be more relocation or would it be more expansion? Like, because I know we have this Philly situation, obviously, that's, up in the air. And then Georgia, there's rumblings that I just don't personally think that because of all of the money he's invested into Georgia's box lacrosse. But there is rumors of that being moved too. So what are your thoughts on that?
the Philly situation is going to be tricky, right? There's a lot of rumors out there about what's going on in Philly. I'm not going to speculate on any of those right now, but
Yeah.
I don't see that being a long term viable option. They lost the team in Philadelphia already once, and it doesn't seem like Comcast is too interested in losing more money, which obviously I completely understand, right? So I feel like Philly might be a little bit of a relocation thing, a little bit quicker than most people are anticipating. As for Georgia, like who knows, right? The owners there have consistently said that we're losing money, we can't do this. We're losing money, we can't do this. But they chose to relocate to Georgia, so there has to be something that they see in Georgia, in the area of Georgia, in the area of Duluth, sorry, to make that work, right? So for them, I just think it just needs to be a little bit more of get that handsome fella Brett Dobson out into the universe and get him into schools and again, like, why are we capping the amount of money that Brett can go and make by doing clinics and camps? Because in the long run, that really just helps benefit the game of lacrosse in the Duluth area, right? So it's gonna be tricky, but I find, like, in Georgia, as you said, like, he's invested so much time and so much money into that as a single entity, that it would be silly for him just to pick up and move. On the Philly side, Comcast is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right? They're just as easy to cut ties and say, you know what, we can write off this loss for a little bit, but we're not going to keep doing it. So I think Philly more than likely is going to end up being a relocation. After that, I don't see how you can't expand the game of lacrosse into some of these, Southern American markets that are just absolutely thriving. Like, everybody in the world says that the Texas thing would have worked if they just had a different rink, right? There was so much limitations on what you can do and what you can't do in that rink that it was almost impossible for the game to grow. And I've also heard rumblings that they didn't care if they made money or lost money. But that, to me, it doesn't make sense. If you don't care, then why didn't you just keep losing the money, right? But you got a guy like NLL great Sean Evans, who is in Houston right now doing wonderful things with their lacrosse program. You got Ethan Iannucci, who's down just outside of Dallas. Zach Greer was in the Dallas area for many years, growing the game of lacrosse. So, like, why don't we try and capitalize on those markets, right? Like, I'm currently in Nashville, Tennessee, and the high school program and the minor program is absolutely thriving. Like, I'm going to go and do 5 different practices tonight with 20 kids each. So why aren't we capitalizing on those markets as well? And then, like, maybe try and get around a little bit of the college hubs. Like, I heard Carolina's a little bit. Carolina might be a thing. You got the Duke and you got the UNC down there. So why aren't we trying to capitalize on those markets as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely been growth, even year over year. When I'm looking at my own local association, their numbers are up in pretty much all age groups, and then there's some that are basically flat. Like, there's only one. I think there's only 1 or 2 that are flat, but everywhere else is way up. So I mean, it's growing here, and it seems to be growing everywhere else as well.
It's in my opinion the greatest game in the world.
It is, yeah, I agree. I know you said Philly, you can't really speak on it or whatever, but if let's say hypothetically they're going to relocate, where do you think they'll end up? If you had to guess.
Southern America, for sure. One of the southern states. I'm here, so I hear a lot. I've heard a lot of rumblings about Nashville. I've heard a lot of rumblings about the Carolinas. There's rumors about them going back up to Quebec and into the Laval, Montreal area, which that obviously wouldn't be a bad idea either. But that's just a real sticky situation, right? Like, we're in the league of secrets, and everybody's trying to keep this one as tight-lipped as possible. But there's a lot of rumblings, there's a lot of rumors. But if I was to be a gambling man and I had 2 options, it would be the Nashville or the Carolina regions.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of the Carolinas myself, and that kind of does make sense for Georgia to have a rival there and all that kind of stuff still. But I do also think we need some more West Coast teams because, different travel issues and all that kind of stuff would help. It would help the schedule, I think.
Yeah, speaking to a friend of mine about 20 minutes before you and I hooked up, Utah's a thriving lacrosse market as well right now.
Yeah.
Right, so you got that new beautiful NHL rink there, and that guy looks like he's looking to capitalize on that market. So why not try and push for a Utah? And you're right, because that definitely would help their air quotes Western Conference.
No, absolutely. And I mean, Edmonton's got to be on the conversation too because they got the box game, and I know their attendance numbers are pretty good as well. So I know, there's a few different cities going around here, and we'll see what happens over the next few seasons. But I think that there's going to be massive expansion in the next 10 years, let's say, right? The next decade.
Oh, it would be the greatest thing for the game. We have the players, we have the numbers. Everybody before was worried about the league being watered down. Well, I think the new Westminster Salmon Bellies just proved that there's a lot of good lacrosse players that are in the NLL right now.
I actually think that there's more than enough talent to go around. I think there's a lot of talent that's kind of not being utilized. Like even if you look at the goalies, some of these goalies that are just backups, like Mr. O'Toole from Vancouver, there, he's going to sit behind Del Bianco there. I mean, he's a fantastic young goalie as well, right? And I thought, what a great guy to learn off of, though.
Yeah, he's a great kid. I was lucky enough to grow up around his dad, Patty. So, he comes from good stock. He comes from a great lacrosse lineage. So, he will definitely be one of the better goalies in the game in the next couple of years. But, there's no better guy to sit behind than Christian Del Bianco.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so I want to kind of shift into, I want to talk a little bit about sixes because it's such a new format. And I just want to get your thoughts on it because a lot of people, I mean, I think there's a lot of changes that need to be made in it, but it is the Olympic sport or the Olympic style. And I think it is going to help progress the game of lacrosse being back in the Olympics.
I'm not the biggest advocate on the sixes. I know it's exciting and I know we're trying to draw new fans in, but to me, it just seems like a glorified backyard lacrosse game, right? We're not showcasing some of the best attributes that we have as a lacrosse community, right? Like, people go to see goals, yeah, but they also go to see a little bit of violence. They also go to see a little bit of contact. They also go to experience it. Like that sixes game, the finals of the U.S. and Canada, it's like a 45-minute game. There's no stops, there's no breaks, there's no nothing. So, what's to stop a person from flipping the channel for a quick second and then you get locked into something else and all of a sudden you come back and there's 5 minutes left in the game. Like our attention span as a society right now is it's a 5-second attention span, right? Everybody's scrolling on Twitter, seeing what Frick's up to, or scrolling on Instagram, or hitting the TikTok, or whatever it is that they're doing right now, right? So you look down for 5 minutes and you're glancing on your phone. All of a sudden you look up and you miss 13 goals. Like to me that doesn't make all the sense in the world. Somehow, some way, if we could slow it down or throw a face off in, or like be able to show a replay of that nasty goal that Dyson Williams had, that running backhand. Like, I don't want to have to go rewind on my TV so I can go see that goal by the kid, rather than just sit there and wait for 35 seconds and have a highlight and then boom, we're right back at her. It's the whole pulling the ball out of the net and just getting up and let's get going thing, like that kind of throws me for a loop as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I personally would like to see a face-off after every goal. It would give it enough time to slow it down, show the quick replay. I mean, there's some highlight reel goals that were scored during that tournament that weren't properly shown, and also like getting some like names on the screens, or being able so fans, especially new fans, can come in and start to see these stars.
Exactly, and again, like this goes back to lacrosse getting in its own way. Like NLL promotes these players, and then we have names on the back of their jerseys, and then one of those new Oshawa Firewolves fan can be like, oh, there's Dyson Williams because it says Williams on the back of his jersey, right? Like I don't think he wore 51 when he was playing for Team Canada. So a guy like me, who I know Dyson as being Dyson, I've known Dyson his whole life, but like to me, like that number 51 equates to the Williams family, right? So if you don't have those names, then we don't have that avenue to connect the two sports, right? So it's again, like it just seems to me like lacrosse getting in lacrosse's way again.
And one of the things actually that I think they dropped the ball on, really, World Lacrosse specifically here, was during that Super Sixes tournament, the Friday night, there was no NHL games. There happened to be NHL games Thursday, there was the NHL games Saturday, there was nothing on Friday night, and I was like, and I went to look at it because I was going to stream the games and they weren't streamable, and I was like, this is a huge missed opportunity. They streamed the Sunday games, so it didn't make any sense. And that's, again, just lacrosse shooting themselves in the foot. Absolutely perfect exposure time. And then they didn't take it.
Right. And it's just, again, like we're consistently figuring out ways to get in our own way. The fact that the World Lacrosse had the U22 championships at the same time as the Minto Cup. Whippy loses out on Lucas Littlejohn and I forget who the other guy was. Luke Robinson, I think. we miss out on those guys being able to have to choose to being able to play for our national title or go and play for a world title. By no means am I saying that those fellas made the wrong choice, because that's a hard decision, right? Do I play for a Minto Cup or do I play for a world championship? So I get it, right? But the fact that this decision was even put into these 20 and 21-year-old kids' hands, then that just absolutely makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, it'd be hard to turn down the Minto. That's a pretty prestigious trophy to win. I think it's actually one of the hardest trophies to win, just because it's kind of a lot of out of your hands, right?
Yeah,
So okay,
I don't think I would have been able to make that decision, right? Like, it's,
yeah,
again, like you grow up in the Durham region your whole life wanting to play for the Whitby Warriors, and the fact that some guy in a suit and tie told me that I have to decide on, am I going to finish my career with the Whitby Warriors, or am I going to go and represent my country? I wouldn't be too happy with the person that made me make that decision.
yeah, absolutely. And one more thing about these sixes, I think the rosters are too small too. I think 10 guys is just too small from what it is. So I hope they change that as well, because to try to narrow a Team Canada or the States or Haudenosaunee down to 10 guys, that's hard, man.
Yeah, and I don't know why the sixes thing has been pitched for the Olympics. Why aren't we playing field lacrosse? I just play normal field lacrosse.
Yeah, and yeah,
Right?
I think
It seems like an American way to try and be better at us than our game, and it's consistently backfiring. It doesn't add up to me.
yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see it change. I don't know. I think there's potential there, but I definitely think there needs to be adjusted. Just put box out there and we'll be good to go.
Right?
Box in the winter, hopefully.
It's the best version of all three games. Like, let's
Yeah.
just stick to our strong suits here. But again, who was the guy pitching the sixes to the Olympics?
Yeah, and I mean, I do find with field, as being a fan, I find box is so much more exciting to watch. But I find the people who have played lacrosse growing up, especially, really enjoy watching field lacrosse.
Oh, it's a great game to watch. It's a social event. It's slowed down a little bit. You can have conversations during the game. You don't have to be, paying attention the whole entire time to where, I can have a conversation with the person to my left and I still don't even miss a possession, right? But I think the problem, and I say problem loosely, the way that the sixes was pitched is we didn't have anybody within the box lacrosse world advocating for us to be a box lacrosse in the Olympics. We got Paul Rabel,
Yep.
who's an American field lacrosse guy, trying to create a newer brand of lacrosse and bring that to everybody's attention, which I find completely admirable. But in the same sense, is that the best version of our game? In my opinion, no.
Absolutely. I know I can definitely see those points for sure, man. So let's start talking about a little bit about free agency. Just kind of quickly run through who are the biggest surprises, all that kind of stuff.
Surprises is you have to go to Vegas, right? Vegas picking up Kluch and Vegas picking up Chase Frazier, and then throwing Mitch into the mix, right? Those are the three of the biggest surprises to me. Those additions are going to be absolutely huge. I think that puts Vegas right into the dance. And then like the other big ones are Curtis Dixon and Jesse King and Reese Callies going to Vancouver. Now I don't throw those in as surprises because I've been waiting for Jesse King and Reese Callies to sign in Vancouver ever since halfway through last year. I feel like the writing was on the wall for those two guys. I was a little bit surprised to see Curtis go. I thought after the season that Curtis had last year, and being a new father, and the absolute joy and love I know Curtis has in being a father, I kind of thought that he would take the Dane Dobie route and like, hey, I'm going out on a high. I just had one of the greatest seasons that I've ever had in my career. We're going to shut her down. But, like, why would you turn down the chance to go and play for Kurt Olewski? The guy's probably one of the smartest minds in the game of lacrosse. He's the most prepared mind in the game of lacrosse, as far as I know. And like, that's just gonna elevate that whole team into championship contention, right? So, do I see that signing being more than a 1-year thing? Probably not. I see Vancouver making an absolute killer of a push to go to the NLL championship game. But for the surprises is you have to look at Vegas, right? Like, everybody was kind of shocked when they seen Chase Frazier and Kluge go to Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean, I said Vegas won the free agency only because I think they've done more to impact their standing. So they're going to go from being in the last place to about fourth or fifth, in my opinion, where Vancouver is going to go from being a semifinal team to a final team, right? And maybe even winning that championship. I would say they're the favorites right now. So, I mean, definitely Vancouver had a fantastic free agency, but Vegas is just kind of they've upgraded their team with their young guys coming in. If their goaltenders can just settle in like Kells and just get to that professional level that I think he can be at, I think Vegas can be really scary this year.
Well, let's not count out, the recent Alex Book signing in Vancouver or in Vegas as well, right?
Yeah.
That kid, he's been in the game, he's played at the highest level, and he's an absolute character to say the least, right? So I don't think that backup job is completely locked up with Kells or even Geddes right now, but. And then
Yep.
you look at their pipeline. Like that Con kid is going to be actually absolutely phenomenal. Like he's being touted as the next Christian Del Bianco, which if you're comparing me to one of the greatest guys to ever play the game, and I know Christian's going to have a long career ahead of him, but anybody who says Christian isn't going to go down as one of the best names in the game of lacrosse, I question your lacrosse knowledge, right? But it's I don't think Vegas is going to have to worry about their goaltending as much as everybody thinks. I think teams are going to have to worry about keeping up with them on the scoreboard. You got your Chase who's going to get off for his 2 or 3. You got Kluch who's going to get off for a couple. You got Mitchie who might throw up 9 apples in a game. You got a guy like Adam Patras who's going to get to sit in the back now and just reap all the rewards from all these guys. You still got Donville. You still got Sean Wesley. Like it's that offense is absolutely potent, right? So I think Willie's kind of went backwards, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. Like I was always raised to the belief that you build your team from the back out. Well, he seems to be pretty content with his back end right now, and he's just starting to throw up numbers on the scoreboard.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you have Vegas, you have Vancouver. I mean, you have Saskatchewan that's basically running with the same crew next year. You have Halifax that I think is going to be Halifax is in the mix, I think, and then Buffalo with Vince back now. I mean, you can't count them out. They got a lot of young guys there too, so it's going to be a lot more interesting this year and not so lopsided, I think.
You can't count out or Buffalo. You're 100% right. Do I think like the LAX is kind of layered off there? I do. I think the loss of Chase, the loss of Kluch is going to be massive for them. The addition of Benny is going to be big, right? But it's those guys are I played against Vino. Let's put it that way. So he's getting a little bit long in the tooth. And the shine's going to have to wear off eventually. Am I ever going to be a guy who bets against Matt Vince? No, that guy shut me up a million times in my life. So I can't see him going into regression by any means. But, it's just these new additions on some of these teams I think it's just a little bit too much for everybody else to handle, right? Like you mentioned Halifax. Getting Bomber in Halifax, that's going to be absolutely nasty, right? Getting Callies and Shane Simpson to already work into the system that Rob Williams has in Vancouver. And now you have 2 absolute legit transition threats to go with 2 other legit transition threats in Reed Bowering and OG. How are you going to stop that? And you have the best goaltender in the game, in my opinion, in Del Bianco, to where, I just think like these things are going to be a little bit too much for teams to overcome. Like Sasky wants to system you and grind you to death. I don't think you can system a team like Vancouver. How do you system that? Like it's their offense is gross. Their defense is big, mean, physical, tough. Their transition game is going to be the best in the league, right? So it's just some of these additions that these teams have made have just put certain teams, I think, head over shoulders better than everybody else. And Vancouver being one of them, Vegas being another. Even that Rubish signing in Oshawa, like you're adding one of the greatest defenders to ever play in the game to an already stacked lineup. Like it's going to be one hell of a season. I'll tell you that for free.
Well, I can tell you, Oshawa, I fell in love with Oshawa last season. Dyson Williams, Alex Simmons, like those 2 especially, and their goaltender there. They just have they almost finished the storyline going into being in bottom half of the league, coming back, winning a bunch of games in a row, going to San Diego, beating them, and then come back home and losing to them in a back-to-back. It was unfortunately couldn't finish it, but man, was that inspiring! And I think they have gotten better and developed more over the summer, right?
And I think last year was just going to be a one-off for them. Like again, like that offense is gross. Their defense is real legit as well. And then you're talking about one of the best goalies in the league in Del Bianco. Dougie's not far off. Dougie
Yep.
is an absolute weapon back there. So like teams like that are going to be extremely hard to beat, right? So. In saying that, like you can't count out Sasky, right? Sask has a great system. They have a great head coach. They got a great other coach, and they're coach combination in Derek Keenan and Jimmy Quinlan. Talivi's one of the most prepared guys that I've ever met in my life. Like I got the pleasure of coaching with him in the summertime with a travel field team, and the guy came with spreadsheets. We're talking 15-year-old kid lacrosse, and you got spreadsheets. I thought I was prepared.
Yeah.
You got a spreadsheet. So if you're that prepared for a 15-year-old kid's lacrosse game, what are you doing with men where you get paid, right? So it's gonna be, again, it's gonna be one hell of a season.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And right now Vancouver is looking like the favorite. Obviously, I don't like to count Buffalo out and everything. If I had to pick a team to win, it's hard to go against Buffalo, to be honest with you. So I'd have to say Buffalo right now to try to go for 4. But one of my dark horses is Rochester. Rochester's their offense is just unbelievable. They just have a little bit of an issue on the back end there, but they can go outscore any team any night pretty much.
Yeah, that offense is really good too. You got Fieldsy going up and down the left side, and then you got Ryan Smith and Launchberry sitting on the right side, just ready to reap all the rewards. So it's going to be good. That's why the games are 60 minutes, right? We're gonna see the best players on the floor putting their bodies on the line, and anything can happen on any given day. But gambling, man, I don't see anybody really challenging your Vancouvers and your Vegases right now.
Absolutely. It's gonna be a tough season for sure. It's gonna be exciting, and I'm glad it's more kind of those. It's not so 2 teams are at the top now. It's more about 5 teams that are really in that top conversation, top tier now. So I'm excited for the season to start, man.
Yeah, I don't think the league's ever seen more parity than it has right now as well, which is an absolute fantastic thing. We're going to see a lot of really good 500 lacrosse teams, right? Like anybody can beat anybody on any night.
Yeah, it just depends on what team comes prepared that night, or travel issues. Like there's a lot of different stuff in this league, and I think we need to get more into. Obviously, travel's a big thing in that contract and stuff, but we got to kind of get that down. I'd love to see the private, like the WNBA just brought in private jets now and everything. They were flying commercial before, so I hope we can get that to that level in the next 5 to 10 years kind of deal.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's going to be another CBA fight if they were to get that kind of a perk.
Definitely think there has to be more money coming in and all that stuff as well, right? So that's a big ask for sure. Okay, man. So kind of give me a bold prediction on who you think is gonna, something that's gonna happen this season. That could be a player, a team, like anything really.
I think my boldest prediction for this season would be the Williams Bowl to be the NLL championship. I think Oshawa isn't going to be what Albany was last year. I don't see them, having the struggles that they did now that everybody's a little bit more, cohesive in their offense. They've shored up a little bit of the back end, and they have Dougie. I think that offense in Vegas is going to be hard to stop, right? If anybody's going to stop it, I think your best chance is your Vancouver. But again, like I think that offense alone is enough to carry you to a championship. Is it enough to win a championship? Not fully sold on that right now, but I'm very, very adamant on that offense being enough to carry them all the way through the season and then making a deep run into the playoffs.
The nice thing about Oshawa too, they have a long runway, right? They're so young that they're going to have that time to develop, and I think they're going to take very big strides every year to get to where they want to be in that championship, as that championship team.
And teams are going to have their ups and downs, right? And a little bit of the start of their season last year were downs, and I get that. But I think this year, with everybody being a year older together, going through training camp, not having to work through kinks, not Alex Simmons not having to think about where Dyson's going to go, Dyson not having to think about where Ty Kurtz is going to go. I just think that ball's going to move so much more freely in the offensive zone. And it's going to translate to putting numbers up on the board, right? So again, I see Oshawa making a long run, and I see Vegas making a real long run.
And what about like the rivalries with players? Like, do they buy right into these rivalries, or is that something that's not quite there yet?
I think during the whistles, those rivalries are as big as you can imagine that they would be. Again, lacrosse is such a small community that we all know each other. Everybody knows each other. One guy could have played on the same summer team as the other guy. But once that whistle blows and once the ball's dropped, I don't think that, the friendships or anything come into play, right? So I also think that, the media or the internet tough guys, they put a little bit more stock into, oh, this guy hates that guy hates this guy. I can almost guarantee you that there's few and far between guys that hate each other off the floor. Most guys all go to the same after game pub. Most guys will sit down and have a beer with the next guy. Like, even, I'm trying to break your hands, I'm trying to break your face. Yeah, I get it. But afterwards, let's sit down and have a pint and hash it out. And I don't think like the animosity or the rivalry between each other is anything that warrants any even like communication or talk about truthfully.
Yeah, no, and so I think that it's great when guys go in there and show intensity, and then they can leave it at the door as it leaves. It whatever happened. But I mean, when with Toronto Oshawa, for example, that's going to be basically an instant rivalry. Or you got Toronto Buffalo. When you walk in there being a raw player, a bandit player, do you think these players have a little bit more edge to them in those games rather than playing a team like out in Vegas or all the way going out in Vegas? They don't really have that same like the fans don't have the same animosity towards each other kind of deal.
No, and that's what I mean. I think everybody puts a lot more stock into it than the players do. I don't think that Dane Smith is going to try a little bit harder against Toronto than he does against Oshawa. I think Dane Smith is out there giving everything that he has every single time for the people and the players, or the people and the fans that are paying money to see him. Right? Is it a bigger game because it's Toronto? Not to him, I don't think.
I think that might just be his athletic mind, just being like every game's the same and going in, staying calm, staying collected. And I mean, Dane just does such a great job. He's arguably the best player in the world. You could make that. I think it's Lyle Thompson, but Who do you think? Who's your opinion on the best player in the world right now if you had to take one guy?
Jeff Teat, hands down, no questions.
Jeff
Teat. He is overall.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the best lacrosse player in the game. You put him on the field, he's the MVP. You put him in box, he's the MVP. You put him in Dyson Williams' backyard playing pool lacrosse, he's the MVP. He is by far, head over heels, the best lacrosse player in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I personally always have him as the best shooter, as the best goal scorer. He's, pretty much kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. Maybe Berg's in that conversation for goal scorers. But I find Lyle, when he's in those corners and the plays he can make out of nothing, and when while being covered by all those like 2-3 guys, it's just amazing. There was one play in the Chiefs game with this versus Samuel where he was going in the corner. 2 guys were behind him, 1 guy was on the other side of him, and he still was able to pass the ball in front and have that guy potted in. So he's just unstoppable in my opinion.
Oh no, I'm not taking anything away from Lyle. The things that Lyle does on the lacrosse floor or lacrosse field, I used to have dreams about doing when I was a kid. I completely understand that, but if you're giving me the first overall draft pick right now today, I've already written it down. It's Jeff Teat, and that'll stay written down probably for the next 5 years. Right? There's tiers of guys. Jeff's on a tier all by himself.
I mean, it's hard to argue against you with that one. I mean, I've got him right there as well, right? I think Dane, him, and Lyle are all in that top. I could see the argument from any one of those 3 essentially.
And you know what? If I'm being dead honest, and I had to rank them, I would probably have Dane, right below, if not slightly above Lyle, because look where Dane played all summer. Dane played out the back door for that Six Nations chief all summer up until the Man Cup, sorry. Right? And not to say that you can't put Lyle on the back door, because why would you? But in the same sense, why would you put Dane Smith? You know what I mean? And he didn't just play in that role; he thrived in that role. And to me, like he's a complete 200-foot lacrosse player.
Yeah, Dane is absolutely an amazing player. Like, I mean, he's breaking records. He's going to break more records this year. He's the cream of the crop. There's nothing. I could easily see an argument being made for him that he's the best player in the world right now, right? So he's won 3. He's won 3-peat in both with the Chiefs and Buffalo Bandits now. So there's got to be.
It's gross. Like the guy just wakes up and he wins. Like it's absolutely disgusting. Yeah. And it couldn't happen to a better guy. Like Dane's an outstanding human being as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So yeah, and I mean, I'm just excited for the season to start. But so anyway, do you have any? I'm going to ask you one more quick question. Do you have any breaking news or anything you want to drop? I'm going to be dropping this tomorrow morning. So anything you could drop, or is everything out there right now?
I'm pretty sure everything's out there right now. You got the details coming out for the Connor Robinson trade, which is a couple or one compensatory pick, which I don't think I would have traded.
Which you called yesterday, honestly.
Well, yeah. Like it's kind of what I do right now, right? But I don't know if I trade Connor Robinson for a compensatory pick, however you say the word. I think I kind of hold on to him and let him play his way back into a little bit bigger of a stock. But that's kind of making you think that they got something else in their back pockets right now. Whether or not it's Eli coming back a little bit earlier, whether or not it's maybe they got another deal in the works. Maybe there's a guy leaving the desert heading to the mountains. Who knows what that could be right now, right? But there's a lot of rumbling still, and I don't think a lot of teams are done doing their business.
Yeah, man. Well, secrets don't usually stay secrets too long in this league, from what I'm learning. So everyone thinks to be flying around there. So, which I think is good. The more this news gets out there, it gets the hype, the rumor going, and then it gets kind of when the news actually comes out, it goes again. And I think it all drives the league to be a better, bigger league, more money, more eyes, and more money for the players and the owners.
Yeah, they're doing their best to keep everything a secret though, right? So it's the more we got big mouths like me and like you getting out there and trying to spoil the party. I wouldn't say call it spoiling the party, but spoiling the league's party.
Yeah.
The better off in the game I think everybody's going to be.
Well, every other sport has guys like this, and lacrosse is, we're starting to see that come in. And I think that's just going to build the league and build the hype and all that kind of stuff because people always want to know the news before it actually comes out as part of the hype. That's why I think
that's our culture right now, right? Is everybody's got to know something first.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, man, no, thank you very much for getting on here and being here. And I'm sure we're going to talk again. I'll keep me in the loop and keep bringing out that good information, man, because it really is. You're one of the first guys I go to when I get OpenX, and I'll continue to do that. So.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all the work you're doing for this game. It's fantastic to see, and hopefully we just keep going in the right direction.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure, I come to Ontario quite often. So if you're there, well, I hope we'll be able to get together or something.
Shoot your boy a text. We can definitely make that happen.
Cool, buddy. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Enjoy and keep breaking that news.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thanks.
So that was the interview. That was our show. I mean, we went over quite a bit in this episode. Mitch de Snoo stuff, TV broadcast stuff, free agency, touched on that. And also, we had an amazing guest in Ryan McMichael, aka Elliot Frickman. And, he's just again, like I said, I could have talked to him all night. He's a great character, great guy, willing to answer any questions, and just a genuine, good human being. And that's what I'm learning about lacrosse is, these guys are very blue collar in lacrosse world, which I love. I love blue collar people. They're down to earth. And a lot of these guys in lacrosse are super down to earth. So we'll be bringing more guests on. I've got, I keep kind of building my network up, keep trying to ask people to come on the show. You guys let me know what you like. Do you like this stuff? I'm going to go by views and all that kind of stuff, but do you like having guests? Do you like listening to me talk? What would you like to see more of? All that kind of stuff, and we've got some big news announcements coming as well. I'm, continuing to build this community. The Discord continues to get better. So, follow me on the socials, the Anything Lacrosse Show on most platforms. TikTok, I'm just Anything Lacrosse. And, I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the normal stuff. So anywhere you want to listen, I'm available. And if there's not a spot I'm available, let me know and I'll get you there. So with all that being said, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. I will continue to try to grow this sport of lacrosse. Keep inviting people in. Do your part as well. Get out there in your community. And as always, my name is Jake McDonald. I'm Anything Lacrosse, and this is a game that never sits still. You guys have a good night.